what we're seeing, or what I've also started to see, is that the pendulum is starting to swing the other way. And that's creating even more confusion and chaos. I'm hearing that there are women who want to be more in their feminine frame, their feminine energy. Men have been expected and demanded to step into their masculine. The environment is not just captured in your physical environment. That is important, but it's also now your digital environment. So what are you listening to on the news? What are you seeing in media? What are you consuming on social media, right? Also look at the conversations you're having with your peers or within your families. The neuroscience behind it is it starts to reprogram the way in which your brain thinks. Yeah, so a lot has happened since we last spoke. I have stepped fully into the wellness space, building my own brand called Sovereign, which is based on helping men primarily, but it's also open to women as well, tackling the stresses of life, reducing the anxiety, building more mental clarity to create focus, to focus on their vision. And this, especially for the men, is to do with finding purpose again in their lives. And I've been implementing some of the aspects that we touched on in the previous podcast, where I was primarily focusing on breathwork as the primal modality to help people deal with their stress using internal tools. Sovereign is a complete overhaul of that, where essentially I help people understand that they have the tools inside them to push through their limiting beliefs or whatever the stress or the obstacle is in life. And a lot of that is inspired from my training in the military. I use a lot of the philosophy and the modular training that I took on from the military, with clinical backing as well behind the science of breathwork, mindfulness, to help people understand that among the polarity of logic and emotion, there is a through line that connects the two. So that also keeps people in a grounded space and allows them to achieve a holistic sense of well-being. Because what I've noticed is, in the current climate that we're in, men are being pushed way too into the logical end. Women are...
Why do you think that is?
Well, because of the polarization that we're seeing with social media. I think it's also with the change of times as well. The classic, the traditional roles that men and women played in society has started to shift because of things like the job market expansion, and then you've got various empowerment movements. But what we're seeing, or what I've also started to see, is that the pendulum is starting to swing the other way, and that's creating even more confusion and chaos. I'm hearing that there are women who want to be more in their feminine frame, their feminine energy. Men have been expected and demanded to step into their masculine, although it is by right, it's a default state of being. But the problem is, because of the constant fluctuation, people are still feeling sort of confused and chaotic. I was speaking to a lady. She's a femininity coach the other day, and her own personal experiences with seeing the men that she's worked with in her own personal life was that women want to be feminine, but because they've had to step up and play the role.
What does that mean, feminine?
Feminine.
What does she describe it as?
Yeah, so femininity in its traditional sense is like feminine softness. It's the
softness. Okay.
Yeah, it's the soft energy. It's creative flow. It's not having to be out in the workforce, essentially doing battle in the day-to-day life. That's men's role primarily. That's why the workforce is designed the way that it is why competition, it is in its own way like almost like a safer, lighter version of a battlefield. right? When you're looking at how work is conducted, how business is conducted,
professional back.
it's very it's very methodical and strategic. Feminine energy is not that. Feminine energy is all about creativity. It's about expansion. It amplifies whatever is fed into it. And so when Laura, the coach I was speaking to, said that the women she speaks to want to be more feminine, she also has wanted to be more feminine, but she found that she had to be masculine, for lack of a better term, is because there was no strong masculine counterpart in her life, and vice versa. Especially with some of these ladies who have children, they've got to be a provider, right? They've got to gather the resources, they've got to go and forage, they've got to acquire, and then they've also got to bring it back and nurture. Now, that that it's a hot topic. It's a very touchy one,
touchy but interesting,
but
relevant topic.
But yeah, but just sort of looping it back to what Sovereign's sort of mission is, it's to help both men and women recognize that we both have masculine and feminine energies that exist within us, and we use those two polarities to create the grounded framework that we need, because it's only through understanding who we are fundamentally, how we deal and cope with stress, anxiety, the chaos of the world, right? How do we then build that order within ourselves? That then creates the foundation to improve our relationships, to improve our prospects in the business side of things from a professional standpoint. And it also gives you that clarity, a sense of direction. It gives you a North Star to work towards in life. So it's like, I hate to use the term life coaching because there's a stigma around that term.
Yeah.
But it's like coaching you for life by equipping you with skills that you've always had.
Existential coaching.
Yeah, it is. It's like existential coaching, exactly.
Good way of putting it, yeah.
Yeah.
I remember now, we spoke about Snow White right at the end of the first podcast. Right at the end, we were talking about the masculine and the feminine dynamics, and I was going off on one of my favorite little tangents I like to go on, where I was talking about the end of old Disney movies and how we see the prince and the princess, the masculine and the feminine, ride off into the sunset, and then we see like there's a depiction of some sort of paradisal image or representation, and I was trying to say that I think, and what you were just saying there is like the idea is that when the masculine and the feminine, both individually and socially, are like combined, we move towards like a sort of paradise on earth. And that's and as you said, it's a hot topic, and the reason it's a hot topic is because that whole conversation has been sort of swamped with like new ideology of men and women, and why can't women do this and why can't men do that, and that's like not what the point is about. It's about a deeper level, isn't it? And I agree. I think that's one of the biggest issues, that there's like a malaise over society now, and I think that's a part of why that might be, because we don't understand that concept is deeper than just the surface level viewpoint that everyone seems to take, and politically people take.
Yeah, well, so my theory, from what I've observed,
we love theories.
I mean, so my from what I've observed, by looking at social media, from my own personal experiences, and even looking at my own personal development, because as human beings, we love to think that we have this sense of like we have a bubble shield around us, that we don't get influenced easily. But the truth of the matter is, we're always being influenced, which is why you may hear some of like the gurus out there who are also right in with their own intents and purposes, is you are a byproduct of your environment. But the environment is not just captured in your physical environment. That is important, but it's also now your digital environment. So what are you listening to on the news? What are you seeing in media? What are you consuming on social media, right? Also look at the conversations you're having with your peers or within your families. That starts to the neuroscience behind it is it starts to reprogram the way in which your brain thinks. The brain is just one massive, like, neuroplastic engine, right? And so it starts to
Sponge.
yeah, it just absorbs it, and then it starts to build its own prompts based off of what you're currently engaging with. And so my theory is that we're in an age where everyone, like society collectively, has moved into a very selfish way of existing. So, from the top down, when you look at business, it's immediately, okay, what can I gain from this? Or what's the salary going to be like? What am I going to earn from this? When that translates into relationships, it's what can I gain from this other person, whether it's, physical intimacy, the physical security, social status, for example, right? It's a very selfish experience. It's very selfish existence that people are in right now, and a byproduct of that is a lack of empathy. Especially if you go onto Instagram, if you just look at the comments on any video, there will be at least a handful of people that will be saying bitter or spiteful things, and you can tell that that's just come from just a lack of, well, it's one, a lack of empathy, but it's also a lack of critical thinking. People have lost the ability to think for themselves, which is why in this day and age, for example, you got like coaching culture and these online gurus who are creating massive movements, which the reality for most is that they're just preaching their own philosophy. And that can be good when it comes from a grounded space. But if there's a particular agenda or an ulterior motive behind it, it creates like cult-like sects. And when people don't critically think for themselves and they are also devoid of empathy, it becomes very dangerous, because now you've got this massive mishmash of people clashing with ideologies that aren't even their own. You're living off a borrowed concept. And so because of that, people are coming to these they're making these grandiose gestures and life decisions based off of concepts that aren't actually theirs, only to then find out that's not what they wanted in the first place. So a ton of people are like, oh, I just, dated a certain archetype, or I lived my way a certain way because I thought it was the done thing, especially among the millennial generation. Like we were brought up to think and believe that you go to school, you get your degree, you go get a career, you stay in that career, you meet somebody, you settle down, have your children, and then you just grind and wait for that pension to come. And the way that the world has shifted, it's just been a massive slap in the face to wake a lot of people up. Because of that, there's it's almost like this crisis that people are in right now, where specifically men, I would say, they are the most directionless they have been since ever.
And they're really falling behind as well, aren't they?
Yeah, I mean, I don't.
Catastrophically.
Yeah, I don't know the specific statistics, but I know for a fact that like less and less men are going to higher tiers of education. Therefore, they're not graduating. They're not getting into forms of employment that would yield, what you'd call
Status.
like status driven, lifestyles, or stability in life, right? There's a lack of stability, and this is creating frustration amongst the women, where it's like this whole I was speaking to Laura about this. It was the boss girl culture. We're kind of segueing a little bit, but I promise it's all interconnected.
Don't worry about it.
It is all interconnected. It's like the boss girl culture was sort of like used to champion women who are go-getters, and they claim life with both hands.
Yeah.
And they don't need to have a masculine provider in order to facilitate that for them, which is great. And I'm the first person who will preach, become autonomous, whether you're a man or a woman, right? Build your own autonomy. However, also understand what it is you're seeking in life and play your role. in society. Like, understand what your role as an individual is. If you want to have a relationship where, you know, you are a man who can feel like a man, and that is through the embodiment of, you know, strength, leadership, grounded masculinity, right? To then attract a feminine, soft, you know, a soft, friendly, kind, loving, nurturing woman. Well, then you're going to have to steer that energy in a given direction. And with that comes traits and attributes. And the problem is that that's just being almost like lambasted onto one side, and on the other, it's just dispelled into the ether. And this is where the conflict is taking place. And when we are stripped of empathy, which is a very normal human emotion to be able to connect with people, as well as our ability to critically think, it becomes extremely dangerous, because that's how you get mob mentality. It's how you get these, like sects of society that just flock.
Dangerous ideology
That isn't even necessarily, well, true. Like, just because you believe it.
It can be half true. I think sometimes
Yeah.
the dangerous thing about ideology is that there can be truth to it, but it's not the entire truth. And they just double down on the aspect that is true, and they omit the other side. It's like an iceberg. It's like, this is what's happening. Well, you are correct to some degree. This is the top of the iceberg, or this is a perspective to view the top of the iceberg. But there's everything that's going on underneath that you can't see.
Yeah.
That's what separates ideology from, I don't know what it would be. I don't know what
Maybe just
intuitive or
yeah, like
type, maybe
an archetype, or even like a concept of reality.
Reality,
Right? Because there is, I mean, when you ask, like, okay, now we're going into the rabbit holes, but it's like, people ask, what is truth?
Yeah.
What does truth mean? There is objective and subjective truth. So, say for example, I pulled out a gun.
Is there objective truth though? Because
I was
that the other day, I was trying to work out, I don't know what was going on in my mind, and I thought, is there actually such a thing as objective truth? And there has to be, because then you move into like moral relativism, and that's when the dark triad law and the those that use their language to manipulate can weave in and get what they want out of situations, which we're seeing a lot of other moments. So there has to be an objective truth, because otherwise it's too dangerous. But
yeah.
it's difficult.
Well, you asked, like, is there an objective truth?
Yeah.
I was gonna say, so, say for example, I was going to use an extreme case of, if I was to pull out a gun and just go on a shooting spree and kill a bunch of people.
Yeah.
Objectively, I have just ended their life, or at least life that exists within its corporeal form, right? Subjectively, my truth could be, they were all suffering and I was sent here to put them out of their misery. That's my subjective truth. But in the eyes of the law, in the eyes of the many people, because there's also the innate abhorrence of, well, violence. It's like, it's etched in it's funny how humans are formed. It's etched within our emotional coding to feel pain, to feel disdain, to feel a reluctance of joy. It's actually also compassion. Whenever we hear about violent acts, we hear about death, because that triggers that primal mechanism that exists within us, which is the need, or the will to survive, the will to carry on. And on the flip side, in order to survive, we can become very destructive and violent in the process. So when we look at the objective and then subjective elements, yeah, there is a gray line. There's a very thin gray line that separates the two, but there are two sides to that coin. When we bring it back to the current climate with men right now, a lot of men are, the desire is the desire to improve, and the desire to sort of be respected in society again is very much there.
Yeah.
But it's because the the mechanism, the delivery or the vehicle has been, there's so many different types of it from various sects of society, which has created mass confusion. On one extreme, you've got the alpha dominant, just say everything with your chest, take life by the throat, and use the same aggressive dominant, like conquer Alexander the Great mentality to just conquer everything in life, men, women, job market, whatever it is, and it's hyper masculine. And then on the flip side, we have men who have regressed, who've almost like retreated within themselves to shy away and give up. And it's almost like this resignation to answer the call to life, because again, you're you're damned if you do, you're damned if you don't. And one thing that I've come to realize, especially in the last couple of years of my life, is that that's actually like an absolute law. And creating content on social media has actually
What's
taught me
an
that
absolute law?
that
Specifically?
you're going to face resistance no matter what you do in your life. And so by choosing not to act is a choice within itself as well,
Yeah, of course.
right? So when I look at, like, I've been creating content around
It's
my
a
brand.
significant choice as well.
Yeah, it is. It's
It's not an insignificant choice. It's a very significant
but
choice.
but no choice is insignificant when you think about it.
Yeah.
Right? Every choice has got some element of, well, it's causality, right? So your action is going to yield a consequence. So
But it's covertly significant.
yeah, and this is the thing that a lot of men have been numbing within themselves. We are aware, because deep down inside we are aware, and we know that, okay, each day that I spend just sitting still doing nothing, while it may have its benefits in terms of creating stillness, clarity, and direction, the reality is that most people are just, they're keeping themselves distracted.
But I don't think most men are sitting still
No,
in the sense of stillness and clarity. They're distracting themselves
exactly.
in
The Satin
a
chaos.
maladaptive way.
That's it.
Yeah.
Yeah. They're Satin chaos. And this is what's now, you can see the the byproduct of that is that our women are getting frustrated, because what they're saying is, guys, we need you, but the message is not landing properly because it's coming from a space of frustration, resentment. And so what men are hearing is, oh, well, more ungrateful females. The ones who do try get shot down because it's not good enough, and the ones who don't try are just being called, weak, pathetic, whatever it is. So why bother? And this is like it's just like quicksand. Like that's the only thing that comes to mind. It feels like it's quicksand.
You can't win. You
Well,
can't
yeah.
win. The only way you win is work on yourself.
Yeah, you've got to become your own lifeline.
Yeah.
And so
That's all you can do.
so that's where my work has primarily taken me, but it's also got me thinking about some of the women who are frustrated. They want to return to what I call like the sacred feminine energy. They want to step out of being in a hyper-masculine state. You can't you can't remove it completely, and the same goes for femininity within men. Because a fun little fact is, whenever we enter periods where we are playful, where we're creative, that inner child that exists in all of us, that loves fun and music and travel and wants to sort of experience the joy and the fun in life, that's actually feminine energy that's being channeled. That's so we both have those two polarities. You can't cut one out. It's like cutting yourself in half, see how long you survive, right? But what this is it's helping people come back to their natural default states, while being able to understand and integrate with the other side. And so my core philosophy for humanity as a whole is that we actually need to learn how to integrate with one another. And that only begins, it can only truly become effective when we understand how to integrate with ourselves.
And that's where it starts, isn't it, really?
Yeah, well, everything. It all begins and ends with you.
And then it just spans out from there.
Yeah.
You said a lot of stuff. I've got this notebook's coming very handy, actually. I'd like to talk about social media because I spoke to a sort of health and wellness coach a couple of weeks ago who was specializing in yoga specifically. And she was saying that she's had to add social media use as like an aspect of when she does like a review on someone because of how damaging social media is becoming, particularly with the algorithms. And we were sort of talking about how, you know, like the Instagram Explore page, particularly more than the For You on TikTok, it's starting to, it's almost like they're able to track what's going on in your life and then show you content that they know is going to be deliberately antagonizing to you. Or the other option, and it's a perfect cover up, is that they just show you more of what you view. But I think it's something deeper. Like, how do you, I know social media is not really related, but you said it right at the beginning, and I thought it's really interesting and relevant. How do you relate, or how do you use social media? What's your experience of it at the moment as someone who's in the space and obviously has watched it develop? Where are you at with it now?
Yeah. So I have like my own little system that I employ on a day-to-day basis. So through say like day hours, I only use social media to create content. So to take Instagram for example, I if I see a post I'll say someone that I follow has made and I resonate with it, I'll engage a little bit with that because we have to also understand, right, before I go into it, that the main purpose of social media apps is to keep you on the app, right? That is it is a business model, right? It's a vehicle for a business. And so when you look at businesses like Meta and TikTok, for example, they're just trying to keep you engaged. Like the longer you're there, the more money they make, and that's the exchange. So how to use that in a way that doesn't become destructive to your mental health, because I believe that's where we're heading with this, is to be very intentional and to be consciously aware. Remember in the last podcast I spoke about conscious integrated awareness?
Yeah.
Right? It's through, again, understanding what your needs are, what your desire is. Okay, well, if you're somebody who has always been quite entrepreneurially in mind, use that. Like social media can also be used as an amazing tool to network with people. TikTok's becoming a massive search engine as well. Now they're actually trying to compete with YouTube, which is primarily known for its long form content. So now TikTok's actually pushing out
Are
stuff.
they though? Because I remember there was a while where if you did like a landscape video with black top and bottom, they would promote it more. But I don't think they're doing that anymore. But they're still they want form content.
Yeah. So, I mean, I'm no expert, but from what I've understood and what I've heard is they go through cycles where they do like A/B testing with how they want the platform to perform and who they want to engage with the platform. It's hyper intelligent. So there was a phase where TikTok was like it was like the cinematic kind of vlog style of video because that was trending on Instagram. It was trending a lot on YouTube. So TikTok followed suit and they started to push that out more. Then it became really like raw, unedited, unfiltered, just talking directly to the camera type of rants between, I think, like 60 seconds to like 3 minutes or so. Now, what I've heard from my own sources is that like they're starting to push out longer format videos. So anything from like 5 to 7 minutes upwards, so long as it's an engaging topic, it trends really well. And I've actually had some success with this myself when I've just been playing around. To come back to your question, how do I use it? So yeah, I use social media primarily to create my own content and push my message out into the world. But when I am using it for consumption, I only look at things that are in line with what it is that I truly engage. So I'm not there, you know, yeah, you might see the occasional meme video that might be quite genuinely funny, and I'll share that with one of my friends. But I'm also very intentional about this because the way Instagram specifically works is there's a form called it's like social media networking. So say for example you like a video about cars and you comment on it. Instagram sees that as like a point system, and so then it will start to push any content that you create out to people who engage with that piece of content or similar content to that, but it will also send you more of that, and it'll also recommend people who follow that page to you so you can network with them. So that's where you've got to be a little intentional with how you engage with social media. And when I am, say, for example, just watching a vlog or whatever it is, then
Do people still do vlogs?
they do from time to time. I think it's more so the larger creators because they've already got the established audience.
Yeah.
I think now what's really performing well is just like the raw talking
That's
head
still doing well.
video. Yeah. YouTube especially has started to go back to like its grassroots phase, which I'm really happy to see, because honestly, when it comes to creating my own videos, I really couldn't be bothered to edit the hell out of loads of videos. We've gone through the Mr. Beast stage. We've gone through like all the hyper cinematic pieces. Of course, add your own flair to it, but people just want authenticity. They want to see real human beings talking about real everyday situations. So
Why do you think that is? Why do you think we've moved beyond the hyper editing sort of? Which is it because people feel like there's a lack of genuine authenticity in their lives? They feel like their everyday life doesn't feel as authentic, maybe, and they're looking for it in another. Or do you think we've just satiated our dopamine receptors with editing to the point where we just we have to have like a detox?
I think it's a bit of both, to be honest. I think one, people's dopamine receptors are just fried, right? Like just completely carbon at this point. I think people are also just sick and tired of getting like washed away with hyper edited these, you know, these very marketed videos, like very well positioned marketed videos, and people are looking for connection. Like that's the most important thing. That like this is something that I've been hearing a lot from my other coaching friends who've been creating communities, and they said this is the way forward. If you want to have a successful business model in that space, build a community with like-minded people, because people are looking for connection again. So, you know, even if they don't have the physical interaction, they get that through a YouTube video, or they get that through the content that they're consuming. And it's relatability. You know, people want to, like I said, people want to connect. They want to find people they can relate to. They want to gain insights and information on relatable topics. And they're just tired of just having their attention hijacked.